When you leave for a few days, the first thing that disappears is not you. It is the pattern. The back door does not open at the usual time. The feeder is not refilled with the same small scrape of seed against plastic. The bird bath, unless you prepared it, begins to lose that fresh look your birds know without ever naming. And yet the yard does not forget you quickly. It holds your routine in place for a while, almost like an echo. A chickadee still lands on the branch where it usually pauses before dropping down. A cardinal still appears near the fence at the hour your shadow often moves across the grass. A blue jay may still cut through the trees and look down as if expecting the old arrangement to continue. That is the first thing most people never realize. Birds are not just visiting your yard for food. They are visiting a schedule, a layout, a reliable sequence of events that has become part of their map of the world. And when you vanish for days, they do not simply stop caring. They begin testing what changed. If you have ever come home after a trip and felt somehow that the yard knew you were back within minutes, you were probably not imagining it. What happens while you are gone is quieter than people think, but more structured. The birds do not sit around grieving your absence like little feathered relatives at a window, but neither do they erase you immediately. They check. They adapt. They reroute. And if your routine has mattered long enough, they return to it the moment it becomes real again. That is what this video is about. What your birds actually do when you leave for days, how long they keep checking, what changes in your absence, and why the first hour after you return can feel uncannily personal if you know how to read it. Before you leave, whether you realize it or not, you have built something far more important than a feeding station. You have built predictability. Backyard birds live by repeated success. Research in urban ecology and feeder studies has shown that wild birds often visit reliable food and water sources within surprisingly narrow daily windows. Not because they are sentimental, but because routine saves energy and lowers risk. A house finch that has learned your feeder is dependable at 7:20 in the morning does not need to waste precious time testing 5 other locations first. A chickadee that knows your yard contains seed, cover, and a familiar human who moves slowly has one less dangerous decision to make each day. Over time, your yard becomes a fixed point in a route. Not the whole route, not their entire world, but a dependable station on a living map. That is why some birds seem to appear at the same minute every day. That is why the same cardinal sings from the same branch at first light, and why the same nuthatch circles the same oak trunk every few mornings. They are not improvising. They are following a pattern that has proven itself. So what happens when you leave? Day 1 is almost always a day of checking. Birds arrive at the old time because the old time is still valid in their mind. A finch may come in, glance at the feeder, and leave faster than usual. A chickadee may land, scan, and move on. A cardinal may hold on the fence a few extra seconds, then slip away into the hedge. There is no dramatic reaction, no visible shock. Wild creatures are not built to waste energy on outrage. They test, gather information, and adjust. Your empty feeder or silent door is not a betrayal to them. It is simply new data. If the usual reward is missing once, they often check again later the same day. If it is missing twice, they begin to widen the search. This is where your yard shifts from being a primary stop to being a checkpoint. And yet, for a while, it remains on the route. The second thing most people miss is that birds do not depend on one yard as completely as we sometimes imagine. Even feeder birds maintain backup plans. Chickadees cache food. Titmice cache food. Jays cache food. Research from the University of Vermont and other studies on food storing species has shown that some of these birds can remember astonishing numbers of hidden seeds across a territory. Those hidden stores matter even more when a familiar resource goes quiet. If your feeder is empty for 3 days, a chickadee does not suddenly face ruin. It leans more heavily on the mental map it already built. The same is true for birds that rely less on seed. Robins move back towards soil and leaf litter. Wrens inspect bark corners and spider-rich shadows. Hummingbirds, which are famous for what researchers call traplining, continue visiting flowers and nectar sources in loops, shifting emphasis as one source becomes less rewarding and another becomes more so. In other words, your absence does not leave your birds helpless. It changes the shape of their day. If you left water, especially in hot weather, your yard may remain much more important than you think. Water has a different kind of pull than food. In dry or warm conditions, a clean, shallow bath can keep a yard active even when seed is gone. Birds that would only glance at an empty feeder may still drop in to drink, bathe, or sit in nearby shade. In cold weather, accessible unfrozen water can matter even more. If you keep only one thing dependable before leaving, make it water. The yard may lose some feeding traffic, but not its value. By day 2 or 3, a subtle sorting begins. Some birds reduce visits sharply. These are often the ones who used your yard as one stop among many and are quickest to optimize. Others continue brief inspections, especially if your yard has strong cover, water, or remembered food caches. A blue jay may still fly over because jays monitor wide areas and communicate constantly about food and disturbance. Chickadees and titmice may still move through with mixed flocks because your trees and shrubs remain part of their safety network, even if your feeder is temporarily less useful. This is where another hidden system continues without you, the alarm web. Cornell Lab and other ornithology research have documented what is often called heterospecific eavesdropping, meaning birds listen to the warnings of other species. That system does not shut down because you are gone. A jay's hawk scream still freezes the yard. Chickadee alarms still pull titmice and nuthatches into alert posture. The difference is that birds may spend less time exposed in open feeding positions if the reward there is uncertain. They move quicker. They stay closer to cover. They shorten the pause before retreat. Safety remains constant. Only the economics change. And then there is the strange part, the part that feels personal when you return. Why do some birds seem to wait for you? The answer is not that they understand absence the way humans do. It is that they learn associations with enormous precision. Research from the University of Exeter and from studies on urban bird cognition suggests that birds can distinguish between specific humans and adjust their responses based on repeated experience. They recognize patterns of movement, sounds, timing, and threat level. Your birds may not know your name, but they may know the exact sound your door makes, the pace of your steps on the patio, the angle at which you approach the feeder, even the soft clink of a scoop against seed. When those cues vanish for days, the birds that relied on them do not merely forget. They keep testing at the expected times until the route changes enough to make a new schedule more efficient. That can look very much like waiting. A chickadee perched near the feeder pole at 7:15 is not daydreaming about you. It is checking whether the event that usually follows 7:15 still happens. A cardinal calling from the same branch outside your kitchen window the morning after you return is not greeting you like a human neighbor. It is responding to a restored pattern that has become worth monitoring again. The longer you are gone, the more flexible the route becomes. By day 4 or 5, if no one has refilled food and water is limited, many birds shift their timing or reduce visits further. Yet even then, yards with dense shrubs, mature trees, and consistent shelter often retain regular movement because birds use more than feeders. They use approach paths, lookout points, escape routes, and cover. This matters because many people think feeding birds is the entire relationship. It is not. Habitat often outlasts food in importance. A yard with brushy corners, leaf litter, safe branches, and clean water remains a known safe node in the local network. The food may be missing, but the geography still holds. That is why some of your birds return so fast the moment you come back. They never erased the place. They only adjusted the value. The first hour after your return is where this becomes visible. You come home, carry in your bag, open the familiar door, perhaps later than usual, but with the old sounds, the old sequence, the old body in the old place. If you refill the feeder or refresh the water, even better. The cues return first, and then the birds follow. Often the first arrivals are not the shyest birds, but the quickest learners. Chickadees may appear almost immediately because they sample and assess rapidly. Nuthatches may come in low and direct. Jays may call loudly from above, as if broadcasting the reopened station. Finches often reassemble once they confirm seed is available again. And here, if you watch very carefully, you may notice something subtle and beautiful. The birds that know you best often waste less time checking than they did when you first entered their world. University of Washington research on bird cognition, especially in corvids, and broader work on habituation in familiar territories all point in the same direction. Repeated safe experience reduces vigilance in specific contexts. So when you return after a few days away, the bird that once approached in 3 cautious steps may now use 1 clean line. The cardinal that once fell silent when you opened the door may continue singing. The chickadee that once paused at the fence may now land directly on the feeder perch. This is not dependence. It is recognition. It is the yard recalculating you as part of the system again. That is why the reunion can feel so immediate. Not because the birds were emotionally frozen in your absence, but because they had a place ready for you in the schedule the moment your pattern resumed. If you want to leave in a way that protects that trust, a few things matter. Clean feeders before you go. Never leave wet, mold-prone seeds sitting for days. If disease advisories are active in your area, skip the feeder and prioritize water and habitat instead. If possible, ask someone to refill in small amounts rather than dumping a huge load once. Keep water fresh, shallow, and shaded. Leave cover intact. Do not trim the dense shrub right before a trip. Do not remove the brush pile that small birds use as emergency shelter. Think less like someone stocking a machine and more like someone maintaining a safe station, because that is what your yard has become. And when you get home, do not rush to test the bond. Just return to your old rhythm. Open the door. Refill the feeder. Move slowly. Let the usual sounds happen. Then watch. The first bird to arrive may tell you more than any study can. If it lands where it always landed, if it calls from the old perch, if it comes at the old minute, then your absence did not undo what you built. It only paused it. That may be the deepest truth in all of this. Birds are experts at adaptation. They do not fall apart because you leave for days. They reroute, rely on memory, use backup resources, and keep moving through a world full of changing variables. But when a place has proven itself over time, when it offers not just food, but safety, structure, and a human whose behavior is calm and consistent, that place holds its shape in their mind longer than most people realize. So yes, in the quiet, precise way wild creatures can, some of your birds do wait for you. Not emotionally, not helplessly, but mathematically, behaviorally, in the language of repeated checks and restored cues. They wait at the old minute. They wait on the old perch. They wait just long enough for the route to be tested again. And when you return, what you are seeing is not affection in the human sense, but something just as moving, a wild creature deciding once more that your yard belongs on the map. So tell me in the comments, what happened the last time you were gone for several days? Did your birds come back the same morning you returned? Did one species show up before the others? I read every story, and these are the details that stay with me the longest.